had membranes in every biology course you've taken because they're so important to all kinds of life, to all kinds of cells. They are, you know, ranging across bacteria, plants, animals, all kingdoms. Membranes are essential to cells. And what we're going to talk about today are not the differences between membranes, what makes a nuclear membrane different from the plasma membrane, or what makes a bacterial membrane different from the membrane of a dog kidney cell, but rather the commonalities, because there's a lot of commonalities. So we're going to talk about membranes, some of which you've had in the pre-class reading and the quiz that you took, and then some of which will be new stuff. We'll delve into the experimental data of how we actually analyze membrane proteins in the cell. So let's get started. So as a reminder about membranes and their importance and how membranes have really allowed the complexity of life on Earth today. Membranes are crucial to that process. So if we look at any kind of eukaryotic cell, whether it's a plant cell or a, can you hear me in the back okay? Whether it's a plant cell, cell from a redwood tree, cell from a whale, cell from a mouse, all of them have a plasma membrane. And then if we're talking about eukaryotic cells, what separates eukaryotic cells from prokaryotic cells, complex cells from bacteria, are the presence of organelles in the membrane, things like the nucleus and the endoplasmic reticulum and the membrane. And what allows organelles to exist is membranes. They're a compartment that allows the cell to compartmentalize activities in the cell. So we can have a compartment that stores the DNA blueprints of the cell. We can have a compartment that's specialized for making energy. All of that is because of membranes. So membranes are really important and crucial to life on Earth today. So as we think about membranes, again, the commonality, they're all made of lipids. Most of the lipids in a membrane are phospholipids. And so see the pre-class reading more about what phospholipids are. There's some cholesterol in animal cells. Plant cells have an analogous component, so see the pre-class reading for that. And as a reminder, and you've had this in previous classes, and there's a review of this in the pre-class reading, there are also proteins in the membrane, and there are 3 different kinds of proteins. And we'll review those a little bit right now, and then we're going to talk about integral membrane proteins. So all membranes, membranes, whether they're in the cell, in sort of the way Alberts classifies them, can be either integral membranes, meaning that they're really jammed into the membrane, or they can be peripheral membrane proteins, meaning that they're associated with the membrane through non-covalent ionic bonds. And if we look at integral membrane proteins right here, we can see that they span the membrane from one side to the other. So if we're looking at the lipid bilayer, again, most of that is phospholipids with a little bit of cholesterol. Then the integral membranes proteins span the membrane. If this were the plasma membrane, this was the outside of the cell, this was the inside of the cell. An integral membrane protein spans the membrane from one side to the other side, and it is stuck in that membrane. So recall from phospholipids that they have a hydrophobic core, and so this is, of course, a protein made of amino acids, and the amino acids that exist happily in this hydrophobic core are the hydrophobic amino acids. So the membrane spanning domain is hydrophobic, and this domain, this membrane spanning domain, can span the membrane once or multiple times, 3 times, 9 times, 12 times, however many times. And you cannot, this hydrophobic interaction is really a strong interaction. So integral membrane proteins, you'll see right here, and we'll go more through this. In general, most of the membrane spanning domains are alpha helices. So this protein has one alpha helix, this has 3 alpha helices. And then there's another rare form you can read about called beta barrels too. But most integral membrane proteins are alpha helices. Let's switch over now to peripheral membrane proteins, and that's shown in 7 and 8. These are associated with the membrane through ionic interactions. This slide illustrates how peripheral membrane proteins can either be on one side of the membrane, this were the plasma membrane, that might be the outside, or they can be on the other side of the membrane. This shows the peripheral membrane protein right here. And these are associated with the membrane not through the interacting through strong hydrophobic or covalent bonds, but rather through ionic bonds with a membrane protein that's an integral membrane protein. So this might have, for example, protein 8 might have a lot of positive charge right here, and this integral membrane protein shown in white might have a lot of negative charge right here, and that creates a charge-charge interaction. So this is this charge-charge interaction is how they interact. What's not shown on this slide, and you might draw this in now, is a peripheral membrane protein can associate with the phospholipids as well. So you might draw right here a little wiggly thing and a little wiggly thing right here to remind yourself that peripheral membrane proteins can associate through ionic bonds with the phospholipid head groups that are right there, and they'll be peripheral membrane proteins. They don't have to associate with a protein. Peripheral membrane proteins can associate either with a phospholipid or with an integral membrane protein through ionic bonds. And we'll see later, because the association is through these ionic bonds, you can strip away peripheral membrane proteins with a high salt solution that competes with the ionic bonds, and then you can extract away the peripheral membrane proteins. In contrast, because integral membrane proteins are associated with this hydrophobic association, they cannot be extracted away from the membrane with a high salt solution. Okay, questions? Question here.
Is number 6, does that represent what you're saying about?
Okay, I haven't gotten to number 6 yet. Good question. Let me explain number 6 now. So number 6 falls under an integral membrane protein in the way that Alberts talks about it. And it is associated through a covalent bond with the membrane itself. So it's a lipid-anchored protein. You might even draw the word lipid right here. So if we look at number 6, the sort of green wormy part is meant to show the protein, the part that was encoded by the gene. And then it was covalently bonded to a fatty acid that's inserted in the membrane. So this is a very strong interaction. It's a covalent bond to the fatty acid that's jammed into the membrane. So would you think that number 6, this anchored protein, could be extracted with a high salt buffer? I see a lot of heads shaking no, and that's true, because it isn't an ionic interaction. What you need is either the ways that you extract these proteins or a enzyme that will actually cut that bond. Okay, so we have 2 kinds of proteins, integral membrane proteins and peripheral membrane proteins. Integral membrane proteins can either interact through membrane spanning domains, or they can interact with the membrane by being covalently linked to a fatty acid tail. Fatty acid moiety. Other questions? This sounds sort of familiar. Sort of rusty wheels in the brain somewhere, starting to churn. Okay. You might remember also that membranes are fluid, and what that means is that although we draw these sort of static diagrams, that you can think of the membrane as a seed. with an ocean, with the phospholipids sort of moving around, and the proteins sort of bobbing like buoys in this sea. So everything is moving. The mobility is both lateral, so proteins are moving laterally in the membrane, and they're also rotating, so they're rotating on their, as they go. And that's shown right here. This is the fluid mosaic model that you might remember, developed in the 70s, drawing much like the one that was published in Science in, I think, 74. And these showing the phospholipids right here with phospholipid head groups, the fatty acid tails that interact, making a hydrophobic core. And these potato structures are the integral membrane proteins that span from one side to the other. And here we see a nice alpha helix. This drawing has left out the peripheral membrane proteins, but you all realize now that you might have peripheral membrane proteins associated on either side that are anchored to this membrane because through ionic interactions with either the one side or the other of these integral membrane proteins, as well as interacting with the phospholipid core. Okay, so let's focus now on integral membrane proteins, and let's look closely at what this transmembrane domain is. We're going to use the word domain a lot, and Arturo, have you introduced the word domain? No? So it's a word that cell biologists use a lot, and in general it means it's a portion of a protein that can independently fold. It has its own properties. Can often be released, it's often proteolytically accessible. So when we refer to the transmembrane domain, it's the portion of the protein that's transmembrane. And you'll hear, we'll be using the word domain a lot. So the transmembrane domain, if we look at all the integral membrane proteins, what you can see, if you look at, this shows a drawing of an integral membrane protein on the surface of what this could be a red blood cell right here. And you can see it's drawn the amino acids sequence in the cytoplasmic side, the transmembrane side, this is an alpha helix, and then the exterior surface right here. And those of you in the front, if you look at the character of these amino acids, what you can see is that they are largely hydrophobic. That's shown, the pink ones are hydrophobic. And then if we were to do modeling, we'd see that this was an alpha helix right here. So that's very characteristic of an integral membrane protein transmembrane domain. And it's important that this be hydrophobic. The reason that that's hydrophobic and is so nicely inserted into the membrane is recall that these phospholipid bilayers have fatty acid tails that are interacting, and those are extremely hydrophobic. Those are long carbon chains. So this is a hydrophobic environment with hydrophilic, water-loving surfaces. On the cytosolic surfaces, the cytosol is of course all water, and the extracellular surface is also water. So this is a hydrophobic, these phospholipids will even spontaneously form a bilayer. And so the integral membrane protein is really happily living in that hydrophobic core. And then if you look at the cytoplasmic domain, you can see that there are many charged interactions. This actually shows the charged interaction between this arginine, which is positive, with the negative charge of the phospholipid tails, with the phospholipid head groups right here. And you can see that charged, these amino acids tend to be more charged for an integral membrane protein on either the exterior surface or the cytosolic surface. Now, one thing I want to remind you of is that these hydrophobic amino acids are not exclusively found in the transmembrane domain. You can also find hydrophobic amino acids in any other surface right here. These might be part of a globular domain, sort of the interior of a if this were to fold, the cytosolic surface were to fold so that just to shield those hydrophobics. Or there may be just a couple of them that are happy as long as they're surrounded by charged amino acids. So if you find some charged amino acids, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a